Testing, testing, testing. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good morning. I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, really? Oh, my
Maybe
goodness.
it's on my end.
Let's see. Mine seems to be fine. Hmm.
Oh, there you are.
Hey.
Yay. Oh, so nice to meet you. What an honor.
Oh, thank you. You do such good work.
Oh, really? Thank you.
Oh, boy, you've done a little work in you. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Wow. Oh my God. My hairs are all
Really,
standing up.
and your authenticity and courage, it's really impressive.
Oh my goodness.
Mm.
You're making me glow.
I heard you talk about shame and you're so transparent. It's I'm just so grateful you're in the world.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry.
Hmm.
Well, I feel the same way about you. I am
Not in common.
very humbled to be able to speak with you today. And I'm a big fan of your work, and I've
Oh,
recommended your books to my clients and my listeners.
mm,
Um, so yeah, thank you so much for the kind words.
mhm.
Well, just so you know, this is a very casual type of show. I don't do many interviews, and when I do, it's just like, whatever comes up, and we go in all different directions. So it's very kind of free form and
Well, you lead the way, and I will be happy to follow.
okay, amazing. Well, first I want to just introduce you. Do you go by, I've read that you go by Katie, is that right?
Byron Katie, and
Byron Katie.
eventually you just fall into Katie.
Okay, great. Well, the amazing and one and only Byron Katie, um, author, speaker, world changer. I mean, I know you do trainings as well, so all different types of work. Um, any other plugs that I should throw in the mix there?
Oh, I do on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of every week. I do a 9 to 10 a.m. Um, just free for all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, on people can find it on thework.com, I guess.
Oh, great. Okay. I might join that too now that I know about it. So that's
Oh,
awesome.
oh my gosh, it's just they're just so they're it's amazing what they'll yeah, they're just um well, there's nothing I can say about people that you wouldn't understand being connected to them and watching their courage.
I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like church, I would imagine.
Yeah. The church from hell to church, all within the church.
Yeah, totally. But like a replacement for it. I feel like, that's kind of what so many people are searching for in just what can replace that level of, I guess, humble awe, that you get from being able to be in the presence of something greater. And I feel like someone like you could probably offer somebody something like that. Well, okay. So the part of the reason I wanted to talk with you is just because I feel like so much of what my audience struggles with and what I struggle with is really like disengaging from old thought patterns, teaching ourselves out of them,
Mhm.
overcoming kind of like the kind of emotional baggage that's stuck in your body where
Yeah,
it kind of triggers you to revisit a time and a place.
yeah, yeah.
And one thing I think I love about your work in particular is it's so simple, and it's something that people can do to just kind of disengage, like see the thinking that's happening in their brain and disengage from it and have like an actual choice in their life, whether or not they want to succumb to it and follow it or choose something different, which is kind of like the secret to everything in some ways. It's like being able to free yourself from um, all this old programming. Um, so I'm gonna start with like a big question. Um, how do we let go of stories that kind of keep us trapped in anger and resent? Because I think a lot of people get stuck there.
Well, self-inquiry is what I'm all about, and and it takes a very open mind to look into one's self. But let's say I have a trauma around someone that was really hurting me, really hurting me, and I would go back, and the ego is happy to take us back there because it occurs and occurs and occurs, even when it's not even going on, it's occurring, and we're going on with our day. It becomes like an habitual thing that we don't even know is there anymore, but it's living in us, and it's part of our identity. So with what I call the Judge Your Neighbor worksheets, people anchor in a time and place. So in the situation where he was hurting me, it doesn't matter if it was 40 years ago or yesterday. It doesn't matter. It's in me. Hurt. And it doesn't have to be a trauma. It can be like the tiniest little thing. When our feelings are hurt, can shift the rest of our lives, make us so self-aware, and then we offer up these facades we think we can hide behind, and that is just living falsely, and we know it, but it's the best we can do. So I invite people to identify, in this case, for example, that situation. I don't want to go there, but to go, we do it involuntarily. It's what the ego offers up. So now let's do it on purpose, to go back where he was doing that harm. He was hurting me in that situation, and it takes courage. And then identify what I was thinking and believing.
Cool. So it's like a time travel.
Oh yeah. And I have this process is about identifying, or I'll say it this way, honey. It's the cause of suffering is what I was thinking and believing in any given situation. It cannot be the perpetrator. And that does not mean he didn't do what he did and say what he said and the whole 9 yards. It doesn't let him off the hook. It's just that what I was thinking and believing in the situation that was the cause of my suffering. And that is just how it is. So to identify those, I have a thing I call the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. There are 6 questions on it. And as we stay anchored in that situation, and again, it takes courage, it's like specifically, what is the emotion? Like all of them running, but name one. What emotion, are you most in touch with? And why? Okay, so I am furious with him because he hurt me. And I know where he hurt me, how he hurt me. That's all running in me. He hurt me.
Right.
I could say more, but I love keeping it simple. And if there's more there, I wouldn't hesitate to put it. I just want to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And then the second question there is, in that situation, what did I want? So I've got to sit in that trauma if I'm going to fill in this worksheet. What did I want from him? I wanted him to stop hurting me. I want him to hear me. I want him to apologize for what he did to me. And then when I feel empty, I move to the third question. And that is, in that situation, what advice, to get what I want, what advice would I offer him? And see, I don't have to guess. I'm running. It was running in that situation. I'm just collecting old business.
Right, right.
Own. So he shouldn't. He should stop what he's doing. He should hear me. He shouldn't hurt. He shouldn't physically hurt. He shouldn't physically hurt me. And it might be physically and emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one on the worksheet, there are only 6 questions to answer. And the next one is, what do I need to be happy in that situation? I need him to stop what he's doing. I need him to apologize and walk away. And maybe not even apologize. I need him to stop what he's doing and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want him to stick around long enough to apologize.
Right.
Because I'm in it. You can hear how I'm living through it.
Right.
So then the next one on the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet is what is it that I never want to experience with him or that situation again? And I never want him to touch me again. I never want to be hurt by him again. And so now the worksheet's filled in. And there is what I wanted, what I needed to be happy, there is my expression that I was experiencing then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I look at each one of those one by one, giving respect to each thought, and I question it. I stay anchored in the situation, and I question the thoughts. Like, I want him to stop. Is it true? Yes. I wanted him to stop. And I might go back to the yes, and God, I wanted him to stop. Is it true? It couldn't possibly be no.
Mm-hmm.
But something tripped me back there. So I'm going to give it time. What opens in that space when we sit in ourself and there are no other witnesses, it's just me with me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what you're going to find. But until you find it, it's like the princess and the pea. There's there, and those mattresses are on top of us. And we can't just shove them aside. That's where addiction takes on life.
Ooh.
So it is just, how do I react when I believe the thought I want him to stop? Let's see, I've been experiencing that for 40 years. Okay. A person that gets still in that, they can see how they react. The thing they're addicted to shows up. And I use the example of, imagine right now biting into a big, ripe, juicy lemon. And you feel it.
Oh, totally.
So how do I react when I believe the thought? That physical thing happens.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And what do we do with that? Then something shows up automatically. The ego offer up the ice cream, the dope, the cigarette, the whatever it is. When the ego has nowhere to go, it offers that up. It's got you. And then let's say it's alcohol. You've already had your first drink. It's like the lemon, your mouth, it's already happening. And nothing happened, but an image of that in your mind times, like if you've been alcoholic for so long, times 1,000, or who knows the number. So that's what you're dealing with. And then it shows you, the ego offers up where to find it, where to find the substance. And you're already there before you're there.
So in that process, the 6 steps, After you've done the 6 steps, then you're doing the process of inquiry, the 4 questions. We should probably recap the 4 questions just in case somebody is not familiar with your work.
The first one is it true?
Mhm.
And then the second one is, how do you react? What happens when you think the thought that you're questioning? And who would you be without it? So, is it true? How do you react when you think the thought?
Mhm.
And who would you be without it? And when we look at shame and blame, how do I react when I believe the thought? I blame, I feel shame, I'm there and I don't even know I'm there.
Mhm.
I'm reliving the whole thing and I don't I'm asleep in a dream. It's just like being asleep at night, having a
Mhm.
nightmare or just a mild dream. It's the same. It's like it's happening in the day. Life is imagination. It's imagined.
Mhm.
We see the past, we see the future, and we very rarely can stay here because like ego is showing us other life, another life, past, future.
And so what is the process after I've done my 6 questions, now I've done the 4 questions
Mhm.
on that first whatever it is, the first set of I want this to happen. Do I eventually get to the point of practicing not being so invested in those sets of feelings, or what is the
You know,
organic?
I want him to stop. Is it true? And I really pondered that one. Like if it's true, I can't be a victim. If it's true, I mean, I'm really sitting and I want him to stop. Is it true? Because there are a lot of perks in being a victim and control over that person.
Mhm.
I mean, it gets really weird. So I hesitated there. And it
Mhm.
all depends on okay, so is it true? And I'm landing in, and I really looked at it well. I looked at the yes, I looked at the no. And yes, I want him to stop.
Mhm.
Yeah. I got in touch with it. Not what I'm thinking and believing now. I'm looking at then. I want him to stop.
Mhm.
Okay, so how do I react when I believe the thought? And then I look at, I meditate in that. How do I react when I think the thought? I want him to stop. And, I just invite people to sit in that and see for themselves. I have my own, and it's different for every situation that I look at. But then the last question, who would I be without the thought? And and Buddhists talk about compassion, and that fourth one, it's where I understood from personal experience compassion. Who would I be without the thought? I want him to stop. I can't stop him, you know, because I am witnessing there now. I couldn't.
Mhm.
But who would I be without the thought? I want him to stop. I saw his face. And in this situation, I saw fear all over him. And I just sat in that, and compassion just happened. And I'm thinking, and this may sound strange, but what position is less painful? And I'm seeing in that situation mine.
Mm. Hmm.
And I saw it. I can't change it. I sit in it. I don't try to change it. I don't try to make it. I don't try to unmake it. That fourth question is so powerful. Who would I be without the thought I want him to stop? Or who would I be without my story
Mhm.
plastered all over him at the time? So I get to see without that. So I just drop me, look at him, and wow. So I want him to stop. I want me to stop. There's another turnaround. Okay, what happened, what he did has been years. And when I look at, I want me to stop, then it's on me, not in a bad way, but just to notice when it reoccurs, to remember that compassion and have a little of that for myself. And just notice that it's not happening now, and experience the release in that, the gratitude of that. And it's almost as though compassion has taken it over. But we've only looked at one, it has really had a strong effect there. But we've just looked at one thing on that Judge and Neighbor worksheet.
Mm-hmm.
Just one. So if people sit through everything they wrote, they do those 4 questions and turn around with everything they wrote, then what happens is we wake up to ourselves, we wake up to reality. It's so powerful because it's you with you, and there's no one coming, there's no help, and you're going into that darkness and seeing what's there and taking responsibility for what I was thinking and believing.
Mm-hmm.
And he has his, but this is a big deal to understand from experience that it's what I was thinking and believing that was the cause of my suffering, not what he was doing. And that doesn't mean it didn't hurt. And that doesn't mean it didn't affect the rest of my life. But I'm awake,
Mm-hmm.
taking care of my part.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times have I had the thought, I want him to stop, I want her to stop, I want them to stop. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So it wakes me up to the rest of my life just doing that one worksheet.
It's interesting because it's like, I mean, I have so many things in my brain that are resistant at the same time. Like I have my adult brain that's like, oh, I totally can take this apart logically and see all of the applicable things that make sense to me. And then I have this like resistant part that's like, I think more likely the younger child traumatized part that's like, no, but I can't let go. I
It's a
can't
big
let go of that story.
it's a big deal because there goes your identity. This is not
Mm-hmm.
a little thing we're sitting in.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? Without that, I don't even know. I mean, I there goes my victimhood. That's terrifying. Who am I without that?
Yeah.
It's it's a big ask of oneself.
Right. Well, and I think the key, at least this is my interpretation of what you're saying, is like it's not about saying it's okay. And it's not about saying should happen or should ever happen. It's more about reclaiming
It
your
happened.
it happened and
He
yeah.
hurt me, and that's not right. No, it doesn't. It doesn't change. That doesn't change it.
Right. But in that process of like this kind of digging in the dark, in many ways, what I'm noticing is like through that excavation process, you can have a choice of putting down the story.
I didn't. I only have a story. It's like I question it, and it lets go of me.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
let go of it. It's nothing I have to do.
Mm,
It lets go of me.
mm, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Because it's true. I mean, I remember it the most with I had a friend who died when I was in middle school, and she was my best friend, and I was the witness to it. And I, in that moment, was like, I will never, ever. I like promised it to myself. I will never, ever let go of her. I'll never, ever heal from this. And that lodged so just tightly in my body that I couldn't, process it because I was like, I had chosen not to. And I think a lot
Wow.
of,
Matter of integrity, you promised.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And go against integrity. Oh, can't do that.
mm-hmm,
You know, what does that say about me?
right.
So
Did I not mean it?
it's a kind in the situation that you're describing. It's like a spell we cast on ourselves.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think a lot of people do that
Yeah.
without consciously deciding it. When something has hurt us enough, I think we unconsciously decide like, I will never ever get over this
Well,
because
it's
that's how
not
much
even,
it meant.
yeah, and it's not even safe to.
Mm-hmm.
Not to remember because that's a safety thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh oh boy, ego. Hmm, it's worth listening to, and and I have an expression: all war belongs on paper,
Mm-hmm.
and that paper are those 6 questions on the Judge and Neighbor worksheet. It takes courage to even fill that in.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever find that when you're working with people who are in that stage of growth and change that it's too much and they can't even fill that out? Like, do people I'm imagining that it would be a lot to bear, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be, but it's a big ask of oneself. But it's nothing anyone has to do.
Mhm,
This this is this is true self help, and for me, it requires going into the darkness and into the hole, the bottomless hole, not knowing if I'll ever come out again or not. And
mhm.
that's where I started.
Can you, um, talk a little bit about? Because I've read your books and I know the story, but could you just talk about a little bit about how you arrived at this process of excavation and
Well,
self-inquiry?
it was um, more than a decade, at least a decade of just just self-loathing, agoraphobia. Most of the time was just spent in my bedroom, but the house, for sure, to leave the house was just terrifying. And and um, one day, as I lay sleeping on the floor, even though there's my bed in the room, I'm so full of self-loathing, I didn't believe I even deserved to sleep in a bed. And asleep on the floor, and this bug crawls over my foot. And before my ego could jump in and fill the space, I saw how my world was created. And the way that I saw that was there was nothing that's without identification, because there was no thought, no I. When, as that bug crawled over me, I woke up. So in that space, then all of a sudden there was a window, and I saw this kind of square thing, and the word window hit it, and then it was a window. So there was the image and the word window, and then light was coming through the window, and then there was light, and then the whole world, the whole room came into existence for me: walls, ceiling, floor. And I'm still not identified as I. It's just watching the world begin. It was just, and I hold that today. Everything's new, and I'm open because open to the world because I understand the nature of everything, and its nature is good. It is goodness. And this term we use, love, and there's nothing other than that, other than what the ego offers up. and we all have the same privilege of living now, and everything terrible that has ever happened to us is in our head. We call it the past. But that past is always happening now. So it's happening in our head. So yes, he did what he did, but it's left in my head. So that makes it mine, not his. So I saw, I'm angry at blank because, or I'm terrified at blank because, get in touch with the emotion. And then the rest of it is, I want, he should, he shouldn't, or they, whoever it is. And to be happy, I need, it's just that it's all on those 6 questions on the Judge and Neighbor worksheet. It's all right there. It's just circular. That's what I learned on the floor. It's circular. And then the first sound out of me was laughter.
Oh, really?
Just, and that was really strange to laugh. Oh my goodness. It was, it was something, it was involuntary, and I didn't stop it. And it just came up. And so that was the first sound. And it's like, I got the joke. It's like, why didn't someone tell me?
It's kind of similar to Eckhart Tolle's story. It's like a, modern day Enlightenment kind of moment that I feel like so many people crave. Because in many ways, I mean, to be able to like see behind the curtain, or I don't know how to describe it, have the ego be quiet for a minute is almost like, I think recognizing the authorship we all have in our brain. I mean, I talk a lot about on my show about the lens. Like, you can tell yourself a really bad story about today. You can tell yourself a really good story about today, and both are equally true at any given time.
Yeah.
And we very much script.
It's so powerful to know that option's there, because when we're in one, it obliterates the idea of that other option until someone points it out, like you pointed out, and then we go, oh gosh, yeah. And we really have to test it too before we can even believe you. Yeah.
And in many ways, I think a lot of, because it works both ways, kind of like what you described is like, it works in the present in how you experience every moment that you move through in your life. It also works with the past in what kind of is encoding your energy or your voluntary energy as you move through life. And I think, I don't know, I always think about like that process of both backwards and forwards allows you to fully fall in love with reality.
Yeah.
In the truest sense. Because you're like, it just is. I don't have to do anything. It just is. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to control it. I don't have to change anybody. I don't have to judge other people. It takes so much responsibility off your plate. I'm like, what a relief. I think a lot of my audience also, like myself, has an upbringing and a pattern of relating to others that many call codependency. And I think codependency is very intertwined with your tools, just because so much of codependency is the pain caused by really expecting other people to do certain things a certain way and being very invested in what they think and feel and what they should think and feel. So I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit just like how this either inquiry or the 6 Judge Your Neighbor worksheet could apply to a person who's, let's say, in a relationship where they are painfully reliant on the responses of a partner.
Yeah. To find a situation where that partner, where they're having difficulty with that partner, maybe, they depend on them and the partner is not cooperating. But to find a place where you were angry, frightened, upset, and then just identify what you were thinking and believing in that situation and fill in those 6 questions on the worksheet.
Mm.
It covers it all. That's all there is. I'm blank because, and I want, I need, you shouldn't, I don't ever want to. And that's what the ego offers up. That's it.
And after the 6 questions, because I know you had a very instantaneous response when you woke up and you were like, window, light. Like it hit you, all the truth hit you at once and you couldn't unlearn it. For people who are
Well, I saw it wasn't true.
mm-hmm.
And because until it hit my head, it wasn't true. So a window is not my head. So it was just like the laughter came from, it's like it's a joke. It was a trick of mind. Life is a trick of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I know yeah.
Do you think that, because I'm like picturing just people I've worked with in the past, and like I think there is the desire to let go of the story, like the desperate desire, and then the physical response is where they get stuck.
Yeah, it's a part of how I react when I believe the thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's how do I react when I believe the thought? He hit me, for example. I imagined he was going to hit me. Let's say he hit me 3 times. He hit me once. I imagine he's going to hit me again. And so I am hit before he hits me.
Mm-hmm.
And then he raises his hand, and I see the past where he hit me, and I see the future where he's going to hit me again. And I'm terrified. Well, am I frightened of him, or is it my ego that is frightening me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even, that makes sense when I say it that way, but it's what I'm thinking and believing, what the ego is offering up of past future that is causing all pain is either remembered or anticipated.
So true. I
And
mean, like
so,
99.9% of it.
yeah, so when I have the thought, I want him to stop, then, he didn't do it. Yes, he hit me. Yes, he hit me. But he didn't do the part that is traumatizing me.
Right. Cool. I mean, it's funny because like
Brain are anticipating.
it's like it's such it's so simple, but it's also like your brain almost like it by heart, obviously, because you've done it times a million.
I've done a few worksheets,
Yeah.
a lot of worksheets.
Yeah. But it's funny because you almost have to like I keep having to teach my brain the equation and like realizing it. I've realized it I don't know how many times now, but I'm like, oh wow, it like finally clicks. But you're like reminding your brain to step back and see just the shape on the wall that's the window and not call it window just yet. That's kind of the stage that it's teaching people to, you know?
Yeah, and there was no I, there was no room, there was no anything. And then, life appeared. And and I've occasionally called it, my first moment. It's where I was
Mm.
born. I was born on the floor at age 43. But I can't say that I am any more alive than the light coming through the window, meaning it's all a state of mind. This is Earth School, where we come in just to pick up the pieces where
Mm-hmm.
and and so this world is, to me, it's like, it may sound strange to some, but it's heaven. It's a place where there's no downside. It's a place like Earth School, to learn that it's what I'm thinking and believing about the world that is costing me the privilege of living in this world.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Um, yeah, and so I feel like in many ways you're teaching people how to see reality and see the moment they're in.
Well, it's if I say the word apple, then you see an image of an apple and it's probably red. And when people you know, my mother said, I'm your mother, or my siblings said, Mom, 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 and or ask your mother. And until finally it clicks that that's my mother. And prior to that, I didn't have one, didn't even know what it was. So it's like this identity came into being, and but of mind, not body. And a body comes with it in Earth School. It's cause and effect. But when we're sleeping at night, we're not dreaming. We don't have a body. There's no we. There's no I.
Yeah, very profound. And I think well, one thing that happens, I think the one of the descriptions that I forgot which book it was in, but it was in one of your books. The process is very much like getting a car stuck in the mud, like pushing it back and forth in the mud to get it out of a rut. And I do think that made a lot of sense to me, just because it's like in this process of looking at something, first of all, stepping back from it, then looking at it from all sides and turning it around, looking it upside down. It gives you enough space to see that all of that is optional and all of that is written in our minds.
We're just meditating in a moment in time when I was believing like he hurt me. And there were a lot of moments there, but I'm anchoring in that situation where he hit me and just asking those questions and answering the questions. And once once you get that, is so far reaching, you see and experience a kind of compassion that you cannot make fear happen again. And the next time you think about it, the same situation rises to your mind. You can't make yourself afraid. You can't make yourself
Mm.
you can't make your stomach doesn't turn over and your chest doesn't hurt. You don't want to, you don't feel like you have to vomit again. It changes everything. Wake up from that dream, you can't make that dream a dream.
That's so true. That resonates so much because I feel like that is exactly the process. I mean, I very much preach therapy to my audience just because it worked really well for me. And I think that is very similar to what occurred for me in therapy. Was you're digging through that thing, you're sometimes reliving that thing, you're processing all of the conflicting feelings you have around it, you're you're exposing guilt, you're taking about accountability. And through that process, it's like the wound just kind of gets exposed to air and then it doesn't hurt anymore. It's like, nope, I already got all the I gutted all the sickness out of that thing.
Yeah.
It loses potency.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'm so curious, so after your moment of enlightenment, I'm sure your kids were like, what's going on? Did you have a mental break? What happened? Was it pretty much like you kind of knew exactly what to do with this information, or did it happen organically, or how did it evolve into what it is now? I'm just so curious.
Well, just really unrecognizable. Unrecognizable. Everything shifted. I mean, just being out of bed and dressing and showering and brushing my teeth. Who is that? But beyond the physical, I picked up a cigarette and it looked crazy to me. And it was like, she's gonna what? She's gonna what? With what? And I mean, it was crazy. So, and my choices around food shifted, everything started shifting. Yeah, it was really radical because I got such a heavy dose, but it didn't stop me from it didn't stop the mind from putting this stuff out that I needed to. I called it undoing my world. And I saw it as a kindness and a respect, that anything that would anything powerful enough to make a world could, it's just respectful to sit in and, is it true? Can I really know that it's true? And notice how I reacted, and who I'd be without it, and to meditate in those 4 questions. And then how do I react when I believe the thought? It's I have a lot of, I hurt people, I said things, I did things, and no enlightenment is going to change that, even though I know it is a state of mind, that it is not happening now wasn't enough. Those people that I said what I said and I did what I did that was hurtful, harmful, it showed me in that worksheet, as I said in those, it showed me specifically, just meticulously, what I said, what I did, specifically what to admit to, what to apologize for, and how to make it right. It's just all there. It's all there. And it had to be, because it had to come out of that first experience on the floor. And I just saw how the world was created and how to end it.
So in the 6 steps, that gave you the opportunity to, in many ways, fall in love with reality, including the reality of what needed to be repaired. Does that?
The 6 questions on the Judge and Neighbor worksheet showed me my thoughts, what I was thinking and believing in any given situation. So it's a meditative process. It's an exercise in stillness to be there now and collect what you were thinking and believing and write it down. And then the 4 questions, you go back and I would go back and use those with everything on my Judge and Neighbor worksheet. And then, like, for example, I want him to stop. How do I, turned around? I want me to stop. And so it doesn't come up like something I have to do. It's an exercise in forgiveness. It's exercise in making it right. It is far from something I have to do. It's an exercise in kindness and compassion and self-love. That gives the world a kinder human being in me. Just continues to show me how to live those worksheets, because with that kind of full dose on the floor, I had no idea how to live. And so those turnarounds, they became life to me, how to live. Like, I want him to apologize for what he did. I want me to apologize for what I did. And let's say I said or did something to hurt him, just this tiny little thing, and his was 1,000 folds, just much more than I could even begin to count. But no, Princess and the Pea again, I've got to take care of this one thing, and that is there. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with him, but with someone. Starting with myself, yep, yep, I did it. And how do I react when I believe the thought? Oh, it gets really egoic. It gets really, the ego just can just own us if we don't have a little self-support and way out. Because, how do we take care of it otherwise? Through addiction behaviors, um, false identities.
I think a lot of people take on false identities because if you hold on to it and you don't look at it, you're kind of telling yourself it's true, and then you script out your identity and
Yeah,
things compound, you
yeah.
know?
Play out, I'm not heard.
Mhm.
And that is just untrue. So now we're we're living something that's not true. That's why I think sharing is so important. Having someone, first with yourself, then having someone you can share with, which is what you spoke to when you mentioned therapy. Someone that understands, or the 12-step programs, and
Mhm.
people's churches and people they trust, and there's a good friend.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you're almost reminding people of their own, God-given rights, birth-given rights to just exist without the stories or without the conditioning. Well, the stories you told yourself, without stories somebody else told you.
Well, the
And
stories continue to happen. It's just that there's no attachment to them.
mhm,
They don't hold the power. You've questioned them, and they're not what you thought they were.
mm,
That
mhm,
person isn't who you thought them, believe them to be. They're not just that.
mhm,
So much more. People are everything. They're they're kind. They're not. They're they're troubled. They're happy. I mean, there's no one that isn't like us.
mhm. One thing that came to mind just picturing, when you do get to this state of non-judgment, at least this is something I've found, is that hard change gets a lot easier as well. Including stuff that, like, maybe we've been denying that we think we don't want, like accepting this person doesn't treat me well. I don't wanna be with this person. And when we resist that, or when we are in our mind arguing with reality and
Mhm.
saying, like, they should be doing this, they should be doing, like, when we get into that controlling state, when we can go through the process of inquiry or just letting go of the judgment, I think what becomes really wonderful is a lot of healthy change opens up, because all of a sudden you arrive at just what is, and it's not so bad. It just, things have to be done. It's not bad. It
Yeah,
just, it allows you to correct maybe things that aren't working in
yeah,
your life,
yeah,
which I think is so profound.
yeah.
Um, wanted to ask you about, when it comes to feelings of, grief. Do you feel that this work can still work for people, or
Oh,
do
yeah,
you
yeah. It's grief is you're not here for me. Let's
Mm,
one of my children, let's say one of my children died. That's a big metaphor. I don't, but I'll use it. I say one of my children died, and what is my grief about? They're not going to be here for me. I won't see them again. Well, that's not true. I see them in my mind's eye. And just like I have 3 children, I have grandchildren, and I see them in my mind's eye. And I'm assuming they're alive. But let's say one of them died and I don't have the news yet. Where's my grief? but something happens to one of them, let's say death, and they're not going to be here to say hi mom, they're not going to be here to say I love you mom, they're not going to call me on the phone and say mom I need you to help me, all the things that we love. So grief is yeah, it's a big deal and a real thing. It's just not about that person that died, is and isn't. The thing is, about that person that died is I love that person, the end, that's it. I love that person. And that can never die.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the work we're talking about is so important, whatever way we find, and whatever our inner work is. It's so important, because that's yeah, Earth School.
Earth School. As you have gone through your career, has it changed for you since the beginning, or has it stayed pretty much the same? Just practicing this with people across the world.
Could you ask it differently?
Have you found that how you feel practicing this has deepened or has altered in the years that you've done it?
I can't really say that what has radically shifted is my ability to articulate my experience and yeah, my experience. But for an agoraphobic, as my life changed, for an agoraphobic to all of a sudden be flying all over the world by invitation and working with thousands and thousands of people, and out of a fearless state of mind and tirelessly, it seems, is yeah, that's quite a shift from someone that couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you were born 43, obviously. Yeah, I mean, one thing that I feel like has slowly started to happen for me is my brain is just more comfortable thinking in this language. And then I feel much more immediate or connected with people. Whereas previously I feel like I was too trapped in the judgment, but that's probably just,
a distance.
Yeah, exactly. Self-protective thing.
That distance is why I lost that on the floor. Oh boy, the world is in me.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I would love to remind people your website is thework.com. Is that correct?
ByronKatie.com or thework.com. Yeah, and I have a 9-day school for the work. I didn't mention that to you. A 9-day school for the work coming up in March, and it is so radical.
Amazing. And the worksheets, are those available on your website as well?
Always free on thework.com, and there's a 99-cent app too, work app, and it's so good. It's so good. It's not like it's an old one, but it just does the job so well. But yeah, on thework.com, and then I have a helpline that there are facilitators there that they don't charge money, and they just support people just to kind of, I call it just kind of learn how to ride the bicycle. They help them fill in the worksheet and get them familiar with the 4 questions and turnarounds. And
Oh, wow. Amazing.
yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine how many people in the world you've helped, but I'm sure it's exponentially growing.
Well, one to the other to the other. It's a beautiful thing. Like you found something so valuable, and you just have to share it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so grateful to have spoken with you, and you're a beautiful person, and I'm I'm
Thank you.
very grateful for your work.
Well, thank you for your transparency and authenticity and the way that you give. It really is extraordinary, and I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much.
In this world, honey.
Well, I will be glowing for the rest of the week, thanks to you. And I will put links to all of your all the things you mentioned in the show notes of the episode. And thank you so very much,
Well,
Byron Katie.
honey, I'm gonna call you friend. This has just been just so sweet being with you.
Oh, thank you, friend. All right. Well, have a great rest of your week.
I'll call you beloved.
Oh, wow. I love it. All right. Goodbye.